We begin today's wrestling news and rumors video with some pretty shocking news regarding former Divas champion Paige, and more so some information that her ex-fiancé Alberto Del Rio has revealed regarding Paige. For those of you unaware, in a recent interview, Alberto Del Rio talked a bit about all the legal issues he had been dealing with recently, and not surprisingly his ex-fiancé and WWE superstar Paige. While Del Rio has tried to make it clear that he intends to leave the past behind, despite the fact he feels many tried to damage him and his credibility, Alberto Del Rio would go on to mention that if Paige came at him again and tried to damage his reputation more, Del Rio stated that he would have the tools to get Paige in big trouble with WWE, with Alberto saying the following message: "I have the power to take Paige out of her job in 2 seconds," with Alberto referring to some videos he has that would showcase mistreatment towards him from Paige. However, Alberto would finish off by stating that this will all stay forgotten and in the past, as long as Paige does not talk about him anymore. Now, when this started to go around on social media recently, a lot of fans were very unhappy with Alberto Del Rio, and they feel he is just full of it and cannot back up any of these claims. Or that if he really did have these videos, why wouldn't he put them out there to try and clear his name to some degree? Regardless, overall a pretty unfortunate situation when it comes to Alberto Del Rio and Paige, and let us know your thoughts on Del Rio's recent comments about having footage that would get Paige in trouble with WWE, and potentially get her released from the company. As many of you are likely aware, arguably the biggest wrestling news story this week is in regards to Toni Storm's surprise and sudden release from WWE yesterday, which caught many fans completely off guard. Now, last night the consensus in the wrestling community was that Toni Storm had requested her own release from WWE and was eventually granted it by Vince McMahon and management, but some new details have now been revealed regarding Toni Storm's departure from WWE, and it's a bit more shocking than Toni Storm just simply asking for her release from WWE. According to one source, Cassidy Haynes of Bodyslam.net, he was told the following message regarding Toni Storm's release from WWE. Turns out, Toni didn't exactly request a release. She just up and quit. Worked a triple threat match at a house show last night and then paid out of her own pocket to fly herself home. Cassidy also mentioned this message about how Toni Storm went about a release from WWE and how the company viewed it. WWE's handling it as her asking for her release, and then them granting it, because after so many talents were released due to budget cuts, this year it's like meh. Now, by all means, this is even more shocking than Toni Storm asking for her own release, and then quietly being granted it, because it is now very clear that Toni Storm was extremely unhappy in WWE towards the end of her run there, to simply quit and fly herself home. And it's even more surprising that WWE would just accept this and allow for Toni Storm's release. Quite a bizarre situation all around for sure, and whether or not WWE want to admit it, Toni Storm is a major loss for the company's rather shallow women's division, and Toni Storm could have easily been a credible top star in the division had she been booked even slightly well since joining the main roster on SmackDown. But at the end of the day, Toni Storm will be a fantastic addition for a company like AEW. Speaking of Toni Storm's release, clearly many top stars within WWE are just as unhappy about this news as many fans are right now. And for those of you unaware, Becky Lynch had reacted to Toni Storm's release last night through her Instagram story, with Becky Lynch putting the caption, "I hope we meet in the ring one day." By all means, a potential rivalry between Becky Lynch and Toni Storm could have truly been amazing and a fresh new storyline for Becky in the future, and it is evident that Becky Lynch feels the same way, hence why the current Raw Women's Champion is a bit upset that WWE decided to release Toni Storm completely out of nowhere like the rest of us. We now have a bit of noteworthy news regarding Seth Rollins, and we will start with a lighter yet interesting news about something related to Seth Rollins in WWE. If you hadn't known, WWE recently released their official rankings for the best matches of the year for 2021, and Seth Rollins was included in the list multiple times. But what was very noteworthy is that Seth was referred to on the list as Seth freakin' Rollins, and not just Seth Rollins, and this reportedly indicates a name change for Seth Rollins to now Seth freakin' Rollins, which, as you're likely aware, was Rollins' signature catchphrase. What's even more interesting is that on the official Day 1 poster for the WWE Championship Fatal 4-Way match, Seth is once again listed as Seth freaking Rollins, which further adds to the rumors about Seth possibly having an interesting name change. And let us know your thoughts on Seth Rollins' name possibly being changed to Seth freaking Rollins. Now the second bit of news regarding Seth is some concern regarding his status for the upcoming Day 1 pay-per-view event. Because as many of you had likely heard a while back, Seth Rollins was recently affected by the worldwide situation, and there was some concern behind the scenes about Seth's status for Day 1, and whether or not he would be cleared in time to wrestle on the pay-per-view. However, one of our sources, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, mentioned that as of right now, all the stars advertised to appear at Day 1 will in fact be at the show, which does include Seth Rollins. Although many fans are still a bit skeptical that Seth may be forced to miss the event, but let's keep a positive outlook on this and hope Seth Rollins is in fact cleared to wrestle in the WWE Championship match at Day 1. By all means, Braun Strowman was one of the most surprising WWE releases of the year for 2021, as Braun was a legitimate main event world title level talent, who at the time just before his release was feuding for the WWE Championship with Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, which made Braun's release even more surprising. However, with the sheer number of releases from WWE this year for budget cuts, it made Braun's firing a bit less shocking, because Braun Strowman was quite a costly star to have on the roster, and WWE wanted to save some money. However, the speculation going around right now is that there still is a chance Braun Strowman could be brought back to the WWE next year in 2022, and signed to a smaller contract in terms of money, because Vince McMahon apparently does still see lots of value in Strowman, but just is not prepared to pay him the way the WWE were prior to his release, which was reportedly well in the millions. If Braun Strowman is willing to take a bit of a pay decrease, don't be surprised if Braun Strowman returns to WWE in 2022, and potentially with his new shocking look, which has been making the rounds on social media recently in the wrestling community. We want to finish off this video by getting your guys' opinions on Big E's WWE Championship reign going into the Day 1 pay-per-view event this weekend, because as many of you are likely aware, there is a legitimate chance that Big E loses the WWE title at the Day 1 show. And before that potentially happens, we want to ask all of you how you feel Big E has done as WWE Champion. The consensus on social media seems to be that many feel Big E has been an underwhelming WWE champion and has made the Raw ratings even worse since getting that title. But do you feel like Big E has done well as the world champion on Raw? Or is it for the best in your opinion that WWE begins the new year with a new WWE champion? Let us know.